Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. Having to rock this one solo this week with Ty out of town. But with 99 subscribers and only one away from one of you guys getting this poster here behind us, I couldn't let you guys go without a podcast this week. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and throw a like in there, and also comment below who you guys have this weekend. To recap a short weekend of fights, we had a lot pull out due to weight issues. Ended up with only 9 fights last week. But just to start them off real quick, we had Don'Tale Mayes versus Roque Martinez, and Don'Tale Mayes really didn't look that good. The third round, he really started to gas, and Roque started to have some success. Don'Tale Mayes ultimately did take the first 2 rounds and got a decision win there. The next fight, we had Alex Morono and Maurice McKee, and that was such a fun fight. I know Ty and I both said that was contender for fight of the night. We did lose on the under 2.5 rounds there. I have no idea how that fight did not get finished. Both those guys had great opportunities to get it done. We had Tony Gravely defeat Gerardo de Freitas. The wrestling and streak advantage was just a little too much there for de Freitas, but off the back, de Freitas offers so many things that you have to worry about, and then had Tony Gravely in some trouble at a lot of points. We did cash on Murata by decision there. I thought there was a ton of value on Marcos, and really there was, but after started to dig more, it played out exactly how we thought it was going to. Murata just coasted to the decision victory with the wrestling. Just the size advantage that she was losing there against Marcos. She couldn't get the finish. Like I said, played exactly how we wanted it to. To kick off the main card, we had Kay Henson and Corey McKenna in a close fight. And a fight that I thought went the wrong way. I did think Kay Henson won that fight, and I thought only just the couple seconds of reversal time Corey McKenna had at the end of the rounds really did play a big toll in the judge's mind, ultimately giving her that win. Moving on, man, was Sean Strickland and Brendan Allen, one that hurt us a whole bunch. We lost 2 units there on Brendan Allen, but did win a little bit back with the fight not going to decision. And man, Sean Strickland looked great on the feet, really pieced Brendan Allen up, and I don't want to, just keep saying Sean Strickland looks so good, because Brendan Allen did not look very good the other night. He did not shoot for 1 takedown, did not utilize a game plan at all what we thought Brendan Allen would have success with there. And then Miranda Granger dropped the one to Ashley Yoder. Props to Ashley Yoder for getting herself a win there. The cardio was a massive advantage that she had, and Miranda Granger really started to slow down. And what I thought would be an advantage on the mat for Granger turned out to be, Ashley Yoder had a massive advantage once she started tiring, and she almost got the finish there. Would have cost us a couple more, but we had no scorecards, no action. Helped us out a little bit there. And to the co-main event, man, after the weight cut issues Abdul Razak Al Hassan had, we were tempted to play Chaos Williams by decision, but both did decide to play him straight up a little bit. And man, that was over before it even started. That's 2 knockouts there, and I think 30 seconds or less for Chaos Williams, man. He's somebody to mess with, man. And after your 2 wins over Alex Morono and now Al Hassan, it's only up from there. I really like this Chaos Williams, and I'm excited to see him fight again. Hopefully a quick turnaround. And then moving to the main event, man, was RDA versus Paul Felder, one that we did lose on the under 4.5. Just thought we'd take a stab there, with Paul Felder taking it on short notice. He looked great, man, to be honest with you, for he said not stepping in a MMA gym since August, and that's what his Instagram had looked like. He looked great, in my opinion. The smaller he was, his cardio and his shots were still powerful, even there in the 5th round, and he made that fight a lot more competitive than a lot of people thought. That being said, RDA's grappling advantage really did take a play coming to toll in that fight, and he coasted out a decision win. And moving on to this week, it's UFC 255, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Alex Perez. And a lot of people are sleeping on this fight, but man, the casuals are going to learn. It is fight cards like this where there is fireworks, and I think we're destined for 12 fights in a small octagon that are going to produce a lot of finishes. Much different from last week, as we only got 2 finishes. I think there's finishes written all over this card. Can't wait to break them down for you, man. So before we get started, if you haven't, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. UFC 255 does start off in the welterweight division with Luis Cosce, who's 7-0, fighting Sasha Palatnikov, who's 5-2. And Cosce, one of the brothers coming off the Contender Series there, he's supposed to have his brother on the card again here with him, Ariane. Ariane did have to get hurt and had to pull late. But Cosce coming off his Contender Series win over Victor Reina, who's only lost to UFC level guys and actually has a couple wins on his record, guys in the UFC. And he was a huge underdog in that card, and Cosce came out and slept him in the first round. This guy's got a 100% finish rate, split some time at Team Alpha Male. I really like these two brothers. I think they have a ton of potential. They're very, very good wrestlers. They're hard-nosed guys who are just very hard to get out of there. You're going to have to put his lights out in order to get him out. And he's got a ton of power in his hands that if he touches that chin, he's made all 7 of his people pay. The weaknesses that he does have is, we haven't seen him out of that first round. So as this fight progresses, what's the cardio, what's the gas tank look like? And his resume is not that good. But standing across the octagon from him and Sasha is a resume that's not very good in itself. Sasha is 5-2. He's coming off a round 1 KO win in September over a guy with a losing record, I do believe. He does fight out of Hong Kong, and this will be his UFC debut as well. He's got great size at 170, at 6 foot, and he's good in the clinch. He's got some good ground and pound when it gets there, but I don't think he's going to be as strong as Cosce is, and I don't think he'll be able to get it there where he likes. Touching on the resume, it's very weak as well. Both of these guys have one name on the resume who is in the UFC or UFC level caliber, and Cosce dusted him in the first round, whereas Sasha has fought Munir Lazzez, which is the other guy who has beaten Abdul Razak Al Hassan. But Lazzez just dusted Sasha in the first round, I believe, in just a couple seconds, maybe a minute. This guy, the UFC needs fighters, and I feel like that could be why he's getting his call. At only 5-2, he's super young in his career and already at 31. It's hard to see this guy making big progressions, but at 25 years old on the other side, I see a big upside for Luis Cosce. I think he's going to dominate with the wrestling. Sasha has terrible takedown defense, and his 2 losses, he has been KO'd bad in both. So even the power, I think, is a big worry for Sasha there. At a minus 390, it's hard to lay the money in the chalk there on Cosce outside of a parlay. I like a finish in this fight as well, but I think the safest bet for me would be a parlay with Luis Cosce. Moving on, we have Kyle Daukaus, who's 9-1, fighting Dustin Stoltzfus, who's 13-1. Currently, Kyle Daukaus is sitting at a pretty hefty favorite at minus 280 with the comeback on Dustin at plus 240. Kyle Daukaus here is the brother of the UFC heavyweight and Chris Daukaus, this one in the middleweight division though. And checking his Instagram, he was just awarded his black belt bout back in August, and that's without a doubt Daukaus' biggest strength to his MMA game. He is very, very good on the mat, and he's got a great gas tank, which he showed in that Brendan Allen fight. He's coming off the decision loss to Brendan Allen, which he did take on short notice, I do believe, after the Heinisch fight fell apart again. But taking that fight on short notice, man, he showed a lot of good things. The third round, he had Brendan Allen in a rear naked choke that almost finished it. He is a work in progress on the feet. He does easily hittable, but man, that was a big step up in competition for a UFC debut in Brendan Allen. On the other side, in Dustin Stoltzfus, he's making his UFC debut as well, and man, he is just a hard-nosed, tough guy. But in my opinion, obviously a step down in competition for Daukaus coming off the Allen fight. I think Dustin Stoltzfus really has to outwork Kyle Daukaus over the 15 minutes here and really have success with his offensive wrestling. So that's where Dustin really does tend to shine, and in his clinch work and his offensive wrestling. He has a ton of submissions on his resume as well. But I do think that I think Kyle Daukaus is probably the better of the grappler, being the black belt. I'm really curious to see how these guys do match up in the grappling as when this fight hits the mat, because Dustin has just been training over in Germany and fighting the Germany regional scene, and it doesn't have as much to offer, I feel like, as what Daukaus has fought. Daukaus has a very long jab that I feel like he could cause some trouble with there, being that he has a big height advantage in 6'3", being 5'11". I think the jab is really going to play into factor and cause Dustin some trouble. That being said, I touched on Daukaus being easily hittable himself, and Dustin's going to be really pushing the pace here on Daukaus, trying to back him up against the fence and get that offensive wrestling to work. I could see him landing a big shot that really hurts Kyle Daukaus, but the odds makers, I think they did get this fight right when it opened at a minus 150 for Kyle. I think that's appropriate of how it should set. Dustin Stoltzfus just really doesn't impress me that much. You look at his resume, and he's fought in organizations called We Love MMA, and it just doesn't sound like the most legit organization in my opinion. He's coming off his Contender Series win where he kind of picked the guy up. I don't know if you would count it as him slamming him. The guy tried to catch himself and broke his arm. So I don't want to read too much into that. Both these guys have Contender Series experience in the small octagon with little to no crowd. I think they just kind of offer the same weapons. They both like to go to the mat. They both do like to go for a ton of submissions. I feel the wrestling edge is in favor of Stoltzfus, the jiu-jitsu edge for Daukaus. It's a fight that I might stay away from in my opinion, but I think it has decision written all over it. And at the over 2.5 rounds, sitting at a -125, that is something that I'm looking to play because both of these guys are under 30. They're both UFC debutantes. I don't see a clear path to victory for either one of these. I think some of their tools might negate each other. I think this one might see the judges' scorecard, but ultimately I think Kyle Daukaus does take this one. And moving on, we have Alan Jouban, who's 6-7, inviting the newcomer, and Jared Gooden, who's 17-4. Currently, they have the veteran and Alan Jouban sitting at the -140, and the newcomer getting the underdog odds at +120. For Alan Jouban, man, this is the only fight. He only fought once in 2018 and 2019, and this is his only fight in the last 20 months. So he's coming off a massive layoff, lost 3 of his last 4 fights, and at 38 years old, I almost think that he's getting toward the end of his career. I think his best days are probably behind him. He does offer, on the mat, he's a 10th place jiu-jitsu ace, man. He has great chokes. And being at the veteran status, he's seen a different side of this game that Gooden has not seen yet. He's fought the level of competition that Gooden just has not seen yet. So if he pulls something out on the mat, I won't be surprised if he makes it boring and tries to clinch him and put him up against the fence. I won't be too shocked. That being said, man, he's really lost a ton of his speed, and he's become really hittable and not moving as much, not using his long range wide stance that he usually likes to use. And that's going to really cause him some trouble against a very young, athletic guy in Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden making his UFC debut after his first attempt fell apart there. This guy's got 21 fights in 5 years, with 7 of them being in the last 2. This is a very young, active fighter that we are seeing improve every single time he steps into the octagon. He's got a reach advantage. He's 8-9 years younger. He's much more athletic. He's got his power in his hands, and I really do think all that is a bad mix for Alan Jouban, who's trying to come back off a 28-year layoff or 20-month layoff at 38 years old. That being said, sometimes we say, the UFC debutants kind of have an adrenaline dump and kind of get in there and blow their wad early. That could be the case with Jared Gooden, but I really do think that this one is set up for a good one for him to make his debut, and I think he might catch Allen. I think he might actually put Allen away in this one. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's finished all 3 of those. Granted, they are bouncing around organizations. Not the top level of competition, but he's taking any fight he can get, and that's something that you really like to see in a younger guy. That being said, on the other side is Alan Jouban, who's lost 3 of his last 4, those being to Gunnar Nelson and Nico Price. Then he takes a massive step down and takes Ben Saunders, where he gets his win. And then they give him a guy in Dwight Grant, who is a very winnable fight for him, and kind of a comparison to Jared Gooden, in my opinion, and he lost that fight via decision. I like Jared Gooden here. I think he's a more athletic, younger guy. I feel like he has the power and a ton of tools that are going to offer Allen a lot of trouble, especially if Allen tries to close that distance. So officially, I am going to go with Jared Gooden, but this is a close fight. But I think it's a dog that has a ton of opportunity, and one that I've actually already bet on myself. And that does kick in the early prelims. Moving on to our regular prelims, we start off with Daniel Rodriguez, who's 13-1, taking on Nicolas Dalby, who's 18-4-1. And currently, Daniel Rodriguez is the -310 favorite, with the comeback on Dalby being +255. So value side is definitely leaning on Dalby there. But man, D-Rod is currently riding a 9-fight win streak. Has really hit his form as of late, in my opinion. He's 3-0 in the UFC, with those wins being over Tim Means, Gabe Green, and Dwight Grant, where he's finished 2 of those. He's going to enjoy being just a little bit bigger, the 2 in here in the octagon on Saturday. This guy absolutely throws mean power. He throws from the hip. He's got great boxing, a very great left hook, and killer instinct, man, but he's very, very patient. You don't see this guy blowing his wad, trying to get guys out of there with the power, and I think that proves dividends as the fight will go late. I don't think we're going to see him have a gas tank issue, but nobody's also really made him wrestle a whole bunch, and that's something I think we could see Nicolas Dalby having some success with. We haven't seen a wrestler really try to hold him down and try to gas him to take some of those power out of his shots late. Nicolas Dalby was supposed to take on Orion Cosce here, one of the Cosce brothers. He's coming off a bad loss, man, to Jesse Ronson, one that he was a massive, massive favorite in. This is Nicolas Dalby's second stint in the UFC after having some out-of-octagon issues there. Got cut, went and won 4 more fights, and finally got the call back again, man. And the embarrassing loss to Jesse Ronson is something that I almost just can't overlook. I don't want to say that he overlooked Jesse Ronson and didn't take him serious, but when Jesse Ronson, someone who's typically like a 155 or who's great on the mat, comes up and almost puts your lights out like that, it's really starting to get me to worry about the chin that Nicolas Dalby has, at 36 years old. And D-Rod is twice the fighter of Jesse Ronson and has 5 times the power, and that really does worry me of Nicolas Dalby. That being said, I touched on the wrestling, and I think Nicolas Dalby will have a massive wrestling advantage here, and I think it's something that he needs to get going early. That being said, is the gas tank issues that we have seen in Dalby and him slowing down, and I'm not so sure the gas tank will let him start early with that wrestling, and not sure how long it will allow him to utilize that, because if he starts the gas, D-Rod is really going to put it on him and get him out of there. That being said, man, this fight is lined at 1.5 rounds due to Daniel Rodriguez finishing Dwight Grant in the first round and Nicolas Dalby's chin getting tested in his last. But especially if Dalby can get this wrestling going early, I actually like this one to go over 1.5 rounds. Nicolas Dalby is a tough dude. And if he can get that grappling going, and if he can put him against the fence and try to wear on that power of Daniel Rodriguez, I like the over 1.5 round here. And that's something that I might look to play, but I really do think Daniel Rodriguez just it has the tools and the skill set to get this job done. And I'm really worried about that chin of Dalby coming off that KO loss and the power that Daniel brings into it. And moving on, we have Antonina Shevchenko, who's 8-2, fighting Ariane Lipski, who's 13-5. And yeah, Antonina is the lesser of the Shevchenko sisters, but she is coming here at the -160 favorite with the comeback on Lipski at a +140. Shevchenko, at 35, she's only 8-2, very young in her MMA career, but she has a very extensive Muay Thai kickboxing record, full-time training at Tiger Muay Thai with her sister. She's 2-2 in the UFC, and on the feet, she's an extremely, extremely technical fighter. She likes to use her reach very well, jab, great kicks. And in the clinch, this girl has very, very good knees and elbows. But jiu-jitsu, it's coming along. We have seen her with the rear naked choke win. That being said, the wrestling is not there, and the takedown defense is not there. We really saw Chookagian absolutely abuse her on the mat, and Chook doesn't go out there and do that to anybody. But she absolutely had her way with her, and if Ariane Lipski has done anything, she should watch that fight. And I'm obviously checking Ariane Lipski's Instagram there. There is a picture with Henry Cejudo, so I wonder how much wrestling and grappling she's put into this training camp, and if that's the game plan she's going to come out here with. Because we haven't seen Ariane Lipski take down, but I think one takedown in the UFC is all that I saw on her record. So there's nothing showing me that she's going to go out there and dominate. But there was nothing really showing me that for Chookagian. I just thought Chookagian was a much better fighter and much more well-rounded, and it showed. I can't really say the same for Lipski. Lipski's 2-2 in her UFC career. Lost her first 2 after they threw her to the Wolves there in Joanne Calderwood and Molly McCann. But since then, she got the step down in competition, and she has sporting a 2-fight win streak there, fighting out of King's MMA. And man, this is an interesting fight. It's one that Antonina's 35 years old. I don't know how many improvements are being made, how many holes you can fix at 35 and still young into your MMA career. That being said, Lipski's a 26-year-old who I think the UFC likes a lot. She is a looker, she's very pretty, and she works the Instagram well and stuff. So I think that's the one the UFC kind of would favor and would want to win here. I'm tempted to pull the trigger on Lipski just because Shevchenko doesn't impress me, but part of me thinks that the Queen of Violence here in Lipski is not going to make this fight dirty like she needs to. She's going to come out here and try to strike and really, not take this fight to the mat or up against the cage where I think she has the bigger advantage. She's super hittable, and she's just not going to outstrike a girl like Shevchenko at range if that's where she decides to keep it. Shevchenko with her sister both have been in camp, so it's a spot that I feel like there's value on both sides of these girls, and I'm kind of torn in the middle. At first, I wanted to play the Lipski dog odds line, but there's nothing tells me that she's going to stick to the game plan, and there's a bunch that tells me that, if she does stay and try to utilize some type of striking aspect, she's going to get pieced apart for 15 minutes. Ultimately, I'm going to lean towards Shevchenko, who's got her, her sister fighting on the card who with her. I think them being in training camp, the energy and the vibe there is going. I'm going to go lean towards Shevchenko to get this one done over 15 minutes. And moving on to the middleweight division, one of the most fun fights on the card. Another one Ty and I don't really see eye to eye in, but a ton of value on the dog side here. We have Joaquin Buckley, who's 11-3, fighting Jordan Wright, who's 11-0. And Buckley's sitting at the minus 265 favorite after being an underdog in his previous two. And Jordan Wright is a plus 225 after opening at a plus 150, which was much more appropriate. There's a ton of value on Jordan Wright here, as we've seen Joaquin Buckley have a ton of trouble with very technical strikers who have a big reach and size advantage on him. Buckley is making his third walk of 2020. Seems like we've gotten to talk about him quite a bit here this year, and he's been on the receiving end or on the on both ends of the highlight reel here with his knockout loss to Kevin Holland, and then the KO of the year, man. You might as well just give it to him. His knockout over Impa Sangane is going to be seen for years. I think we're done getting Buckley at these dog odds, man, but to be honest with you, at this point and at these odds, I think he's way, way overpriced. Yes, he's super athletic and he throws so much power. He's got a great resume for 26, but he does slow down because he throws that much power, and he does have trouble with guys who have a big reach advantage on him. That being said, you look across, and Jordan Wright's going to be sporting a 4 to 5 inch reach advantage. Jordan's record does say 11-0, but on the Contender Series, he got slept by Fluffy Hernandez, which then eventually got overturned to a no contest. Then he did get his, a couple wins there in LFA, got his UFC call up at 205, and he got a doctor stoppage with an excellent knee in the clinch where he put a huge cut above the eye of Ike Villanueva there. Jordan Wright's size advantage and reach advantage is something that he's really, really going to have to rely on here. He's 6'2" versus Buckley's 5'10", and then we have already talked about the big reach advantage. That's something he's really going to have to utilize, and he's going to have to stay calm under pressure and under the heat. He's an extremely, extremely technical striker, man. He's got great spinning kicks. I know he opened that Villanueva fight up with a spinning heel kick. It's very, very fast. This guy's got great knees in the clinch, which he showed, and he really changes his level with his kicks. He's way more technical striker of the two. Buckley definitely throwing the hands, relies more on the boxing, where Jordan Wright throws a whole lot of the kicks. Jordan Wright's resume is really not something that I can say I like, and it's definitely not. He's not fighting the competition that Buckley was before getting into the UFC. He's fighting on the Alaskan FC regional scene, and he didn't get a guy with a win on his record until his 8th fight. So it's a regional scene that doesn't prepare you much for the UFC and much for the big lights, and I thought it showed with the Fluffy Hernandez fight. Jordan Wright really tends to shell up when that big power's coming his way, and I think he's going to have some trouble in this fight. If he can keep his range, though, the over 1.5 is at plus money. People think that Buckley's going to walk in here and just dust this guy. And, we've seen Jordan fight at 205 and have to deal with that power before. So he might be able to use his range and his kicks and keep Buckley away for a couple minutes to hit that over 1.5. But, man, if Buckley really backs him up and starts throwing that heat, we've seen Jordan shell up. And I've really got to lean toward Buckley here. He's coming off the win over Impa. He's got to be having some hype. Hopefully he's been back in the gym training like never before and not taking it easy after having a win like that. The value side is Jordan Wright here, without a doubt. I can agree with that, but I do have to go with Buckley here. And getting to the prelim main event, we have the number one contender fight. These guys here, that I do believe the winner will get the next title shot. Will be fighting the winner of the main event. We have the number 2 flyweight Brandon Morena, who's 17-5, fighting the number 8 Brandon Royval, who's 12-4. And currently they have Moreno at a minus 190 favorite with the comeback in Royval at plus 165. And I like that a lot, man. Moreno has been my boy since day one, since the Ultimate Fighter, since he was the last one picked and came out there and really had an interesting fight with Pantoja. I like Brandon Moreno, but I almost think we might have seen the best of him. I don't see improvements from fight to fight. We've already seen him have to leave the UFC, get another fight, and come back, and he really leaves these fights too close for my liking. He was supposed to fight the guy that's getting the shot there, and Alex Perez, and after Garbrandt fell out, Perez got that title shot, and I think that's solely because of, both of their last wins being Formiga, and Moreno left that fight way too close, a fight that I wouldn't have been upset if they gave to Formiga, where you had Perez go out there and, put him away in the first round. These guys, I think Royval is going to have the better stand-up of the two. I think Moreno has the better ground game. That being said, Royval is a very, very slick submission artist. I think Brandon Moreno is just the better wrestler of the two. And he might have the better gas tank, as we've seen him hit the judges quite a bit. That being said, Royval has 5-round experience there in LFA. He's training at Factory X now, Muay Thai. He's 2-0 in the UFC, with both of those fights being here in 2020. He's taken the quick turnaround after his win over Kayakar France, and Brandon Royval is a guy that I really, really like. He's 5'8", he's got great size for the flyweight division, over a 70-inch reach. He's spent over 8 to 10 fights in LFA before coming to the UFC. At 28 years old, I think he's hitting his prime, and we're seeing that. We're seeing this guy improve every single fight. And he's really coming in here. I think he's got the higher ceiling of these two, but I think both have a lot of time and a lot of skill set to offer the UFC flyweight division. The skill set's there in Brandon Royval, man. He's got great boxing, but he's not going to wear himself out with his boxing. He's very light with his shots. But man, at 5'8", those shots have some power to them. And Kayakar France, saw that. Both of these guys are able to put each other down, and that's a common opponent between the two. And, Kayakar France has a ton of power for flyweight and caused some trouble for both Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno. But we did see Brandon Moreno have to go to the scorecards, where we saw Royval get the finish in one of the most exciting fights here in 2020. This is a super, super close fight, and Ty is leaning more toward Brandon Moreno, and I was too, but man, when I get to breaking this down, man, I think Brandon Royval has really just hit his groove. Both those fights being this year, getting 2 finishes, man. If Brandon Moreno can get the wrestling going, Royval will then offer him a ton of submission attacks from the bottom that I think will not want Brandon Moreno to take the fight back down to the mat. So I think Brandon Royval just has the higher ceiling. I think he puts his game together better. I think he's the better striker. In another fight, like I said, me and Ty disagreeing here and splitting it on quite a few fights of the night here. But this is one that I think has excellent value. I do agree that it should probably be lined closer to a pick'em than what it is now. I hate picking against my boy Brandon Moreno, man, but I think there's a ton of value on Brandon Royval. I think he gets the dub here on Saturday, and I think he's the next title challenger. To kick off the main card in the light heavyweight division, we have the rematch between Mauricio Shogun, who's 27-11, fighting Paul Craig, who's 13-4. And these odds have completely flipped from the first fight. The first fight, Paul Craig closed at a plus 200, and now he's a minus 170 favorite coming into this one. Shogun is an absolute legend. I mean, all the way back to the Pride days. He held the UFC light heavyweight belt. He has been a part of some legendary fights and has some devastating KOs. And, I mean, he feels like he should be much older than 38 years old, in my opinion. This guy has a lot of miles on the body. And that, on the other hand, is a 32-year-old Paul Craig who just doesn't have the miles and, punishment on the body. This is a rematch, and it was a close fight the time before, but Paul Craig almost got Shogun out of there in the first round there. Then they put this fight back together, and I see why the odds are that way this time. Shogun, who typically does have a speed advantage over a lot of other light heavyweights there, That's something he tends to enjoy, but man, in the last fight against Nogueira, he looked slow. It was a fight that I thought Nogueira actually probably won. Shogun looked so slow on the feet and stuff, and that completely threw that out the window. I know Paul Craig is very slow on the feet himself, but Shogun is not going to have the speed advantage that I once thought. He has a dangerous left hook, and if he gets you in the clinch, he has some devastating knees that can really take the gas out of you there. But, for him, he's coming in at a big size advantage again. The chin has kind of been tested and been an issue for both of them in some points. But Shogun is just, he just doesn't move his head as of late, man. Both of these guys are 3-1-1 in their last 5, and Mauricio Shogun, who, kind of pulled out some wins that I didn't necessarily think he was going to, especially that in the Tyson Pedro fight. Standing across from him there and Paul Craig. Paul Craig is just a guy that I absolutely love watching a fight. You have no idea what you're going to see when Paul Craig steps into the octagon. And I like Paul Craig in this rematch here, actually, and I think the odds makers favor him as well with the odds they're giving us. I feel like Craig just needs to be way more patient in this one, as he almost got Shogun out of there in the first round, and he really kind of blew his wad trying to do so. And Shogun really had success in those last 2 rounds, ultimately getting him the draw there. Paul Craig, just looking at him, man, he takes a lot of punishment on the feet. He's super hittable, but on the mat, he is an absolute wizard. He's got a great submission game. He's actually submitted Ankalaev, who is one of the best prospects at light heavyweight right now with 1 second left. You can't count Paul Craig out from start to finish. He has gas tank issues and stuff, but he's just never going to be out of there. He's one of those guys that he will go out on his shield. You really have to put him out. And the same can be said for Mauricio Shogun Hua. And it's really hard for me. Paul Craig is one of those guys that is extremely hard for me to trust with my money. But I think he is the A side here. I think he's the better fighter. He's much younger. He's going to be a couple inches bigger, have a 5-inch reach advantage, which we've seen Shogun struggle with tremendously with bigger fighters. I think Shogun needs to pack it up and head to Bellator, in my opinion, where some of those older light heavyweights are, where he can have, take on some more competitive fights for me. I think Paul Craig takes this one, and I actually like Paul Craig to get this one done inside the judges. Moving on, man, is Katlyn Chookagian, 14-4, fighting Cynthia Calvillo, who's 9-1. Chookagian is making a quick turnaround here after her loss to Jessica Andrade, and Calvillo, also one of the girls that has moved up from 115, but just a completely different style than Andrade. I have some love for Chookagian. She cashed me big against the lesser of the Shevchenko sister. I thought she was just a much more well-rounded modern MMA fighter, and it absolutely showed. We've seen her get dominated in Houston there, and then I also lost a bet on her in the Andrade fight. So for some reason, I just have a little bit of love for Chookagian, and I don't know why. That being said, man, she is going to enjoy a 5-inch reach advantage, a 5-inch height advantage, and a 4-inch reach advantage. Cynthia Calvillo, moving up to 125, I don't know if that was the best choice for her. She looks very, very small, and I think the scale was just her biggest enemy at 115. I think she should just go back, hire a nutritionist, take the fight game more serious, and I think 115 is a very, very good division for her. At 5'4", she doesn't really have the frame, and I think she's going to give up some size to a lot of these girls. That being said, she's just coming off a win over Jessica Ai in her 125 debut, but had a terrible, terrible weight cut for Jessica Ai, and Chookagian has twice the movement that Jessica Ai is going to offer. Cynthia Calvillo is typically at a disadvantage on the feet in a lot of her fights, but excels in the clinch game up against the cage, and especially down on the mat where she's very good at jiu-jitsu. But man, I think Katlyn Chookagian is completely getting absolutely disrespected in this fight. She is getting some recency bias in that Andrade fight. That is definitely why she is at a plus 220 underdog. Before that fight, I think Chookagian might actually be the favorite here. She has so much volume and output. The noises she makes when she throws her strikes, it's hard to beat Katlyn Chookagian over a decision. And, it's proven. This girl has no ability to finish. She has fought to 11 decisions in her 14 wins. And even with her big height and reach advantage, she just can't get the finish there. She had Antonina mauled for 15 minutes and still couldn't get the finish. That being said, I don't want to knock her too much. I think she has great feints, and I think she has a ton of output that's going to cause Calvillo a ton of trouble. Calvillo is definitely the better person or better fighter on the mat here, but I just don't know how much better it is and how much success she'll have against a girl who's much taller than her. I can't help but play Chookagian here again. I know Ty agrees with it as well, and I've already made a personal play at a plus 220 dog on Katlyn Chookagian. Decision machine, and I think she wins this via decision again. The plus 200 is so disrespectful. It's just recency bias. The play on 220, on Katlyn Chookagian at plus 220 is not just because I think the odds are disrespected in her favor. I think she actually has potential to win this fight, and I think she's the more well-rounded of the two. And man, moving on to one of the probably the most fun fight on this card, we have Mike Perry, who's 14-6, fighting Tim Means, who's 30-12. And man, Mike Perry is certainly sitting at the minus 150 favorite with Tim Means at a plus 130 underdog. And this is going to be such a good fight in my opinion, man. Mike Perry is easily one of my absolute favorite fighters to watch. I'm not going to miss a Mike Perry fight. But as of late, man, I feel like we have not seen a good Mike Perry that's in any sort of good headspace at all. We've seen him have issues with getting a cornerman, not wanting to pay to be in a good gym. And I don't know how that's going to go around this go around because you're not fighting Mickey Gall here. That being said, also looking at his Instagram, man, I don't know what kind of mindset he's in. He's having a baby. He's dealing with the issues from his ex-wife. I know he's got, money issues and tax issues. And then, just hitting the pads with Alex Nicholson and stuff. He has looked slow, in my opinion. He has not looked good. But he's still got huge power, man, that you cannot mess around with. And he's so durable. He's so tough. The Jeff Neal head kick is the only thing that's put Mike Perry out of there. Luque had his nose sitting on the other side of his face and couldn't get him out of there. I think Mike Perry is just really kind of in limbo right now and doesn't know what he wants to do. At the same time, I think he talks about how his coaches tried to change him too much and how he's a chain dog that they tried to put in the doghouse and make him too technical, and I definitely see where he's coming from. I think he just needs to find the right coach to put a little technicality into his brawling style, and I think Mike Perry gets right back up to the fun, exciting Mike Perry that we liked watching. He isn't the best wrestler, and in my opinion, at this point in time, Mike Perry is regressing, and there's a ton of value on Tim Means. Tim Means has literally the same body frame of Mickey Gall, and he's twice the striker, and we saw Mickey Gall really outstrike Mike Perry on the feet and give Mike Perry some trouble with that length and stuff. And Tim Means is just twice the striker, man. And his veteran experience, especially in the last fight against Tarpoli, it really showed, man. I think he can clinch Perry up against this fence. I think he can drain some of the energy out of Mike Perry, take some of the power off Mike Perry's punches. That's really the only thing that you have to worry about with Mike Perry are those dangerous hooks that you see coming in. And Tim Means, he does tend to keep his hands low. We've seen that. He's hittable. He took some very good big power shots from that Staropoli fight, and they've seen him, cause him some trouble with D-Rod and Nico Price. That being said, he's going to be enjoying a couple inches in height and reach advantage here. I absolutely see the value side in Means. At a plus 130, I can't pull the trigger yet because Perry is absolutely my boy. But he's kind of just a one round fighter and done at this point. If it goes past one round, I think Tim Means easily takes this by decision. But I'm going to let that line get a little bigger because Mike Perry is the household name. Mike Perry is the one that everybody likes. And at plus 130, I just can't pull the trigger on it right yet. But man, if that gets any bigger, I like Tim Means' chance. I'm actually going with Tim Means to win this fight. And I will pull the trigger. It's definitely all Means or pass here. And if it gets a little more in our favor, plus 150, I will be pulling the trigger on Tim Means there. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we have Valentina Shevchenko, who is the flyweight champ, who's 19-3, fighting the number one contender, and Jennifer Maia, who is 18-6. And these odds that you get with Shevchenko are just something else. She's currently at the minus 1,400 favorite to the comeback on Maia, plus 925. And Valentina opened at a minus 750, and that's something that you can absolutely parlay with another fighter or two to get great value on. But a minus 1,400, it's almost a lost cause. This is a fight I probably won't spend too much time on. It's definitely a one-sided fight here. This division was created for Valentina Shevchenko, and she's running through every single girl that they give her. She only loses to Amanda Nunes, and it's at 135, where she's given up a ton of size. Valentina is just in her prime right now. She is well-rounded everywhere, training out of Tiger Muay Thai. Her stand-up is absolutely unreal. She has extensive Muay Thai kickboxing background, and she's an absolute stud on the mat, way better than her sister. Valentina is absolutely one of my favorite girls to watch. She is so technical with her punches. She has a very quick straight right. Her body kicks are great, and she switches levels with them very, very great, which is what you saw happen to Jessica Hyde there. As soon as she got you thinking about that body kick, she went up high with it, and first time knocked her out cold. What I like about Valentina is she's great at fighting her fight. She doesn't put herself in danger. She doesn't make mistakes. She doesn't fight down to her level of competition. She always fights her fight, even if it's boring, even if it's over 25 minutes. And that's something I could really see in this fight as well. Jennifer Maia took the fight on short notice against Joanne Calderwood and absolutely dominated that fight, and has now found herself fighting for the belt a bit premature in my opinion. She does have a great straight right hand, which she found the home for Joanne Calderwood quite a bit, but Calderwood's not really known for moving her head there, and as soon as it hit the mat, the BJJ black belt that Maia has, it definitely showed. And, I feel like that's her way of winning this fight. She needs to go for broke and try to catch some kind of sub in a scramble, lock up a neck or something. She is totally outclassed on the mat, on the feet. She's getting this title shot on a one-fight win streak. And she just has trouble with girls who offer a lot of movement or the more technical striker on the two. We've never seen this girl be scheduled for 25 minutes. One prop I do like is the over 2.5 at minus 135. Shevchenko tends to kind of play with her prey before she goes in with the kill a lot of times. She tends to have, especially a round one, of a feeling out process. Like I said, she doesn't put herself in danger, and she has no problem being the more technical over 25 minutes. And I think Maia is very tough, and I think she has the ground skills that if it does hit the mat, she might be able to defend off some of those takedowns. So the over 2.5 at minus 135, I think is a very great play, and I think this is an easy win here for Valentina. And moving on to the main event of the evening, the flyweight championship, we have Deiveson Figueiredo, who's 19-1, fighting the number 5 contender, and Alex Perez, who's 24-5. Deiveson makes this division exciting again. He was supposed to fight Cody Garbrandt, which was an excellent fight, one I was really, really looking forward to. After he pulled out, Alex Perez taking the step up in competition here and fighting Figueiredo. Perez is supposed to be fighting Brandon Morena, which we did talk about. And Alex Perez is the first Contender Series fighter here to get a title shot. So something worth noting. This guy is still real young for me, though, man. He's got a great calf kick. He's got great wrestling, but he hasn't really developed the striking skills to give Deiveson real trouble on the feet. I think he's got to be real smart with this with his wrestling. He doesn't need to leave himself open to take any of the damage. And he needs to start with the wrestling early. I think he needs to try to get, to steal one of the first couple rounds from Deiveson Figueiredo, because that's where Deiveson is the most dangerous. As the fight goes on, I think the wrestling and stuff Perez will, can take over and take control. So if he were to steal a round or two from Deiveson early, it puts Deiveson in a tricky situation who is not used to fighting over long distances and makes a living off getting guys out of there quick. Deiveson, man, he's coming off back-to-back just absolute maulings of Joseph Benavidez. And on his Instagram and stuff, with his new nutritionist that he's really put a lot of money into, he says he looks to be in phenomenal shape. I know he's down about 6 or 7 pounds coming into fight week that he normally is. And I love that for Figueiredo, man. I think his cardio was probably one of his biggest weaknesses to his game because he throws so much into all his shots. And hiring the new nutritionist, man, it only makes me more optimistic for this. They do have a common opponent, man. Alex Perez, he's lost to Joseph Benavidez by first round, just TKO, where he was, ground and pounded out of there. And Figueiredo was absolutely just mauled Benavidez in his last two. That being said, the last person to beat Deiveson Figueiredo was Jussier Formiga, who laid on him and really used his wrestling advantage there. And we saw Alex Perez just come out there and dust Formiga in the first round with those with those calf kicks. It's a tricky fight. I definitely do see Alex Perez having the wrestling advantage, maybe the cardio advantage. But getting out of the first couple rounds with Deiveson Figueiredo is absolutely scary. This guy has unreal power for flyweight. His hands are so fast, and that right hand is just stupid accurate. He has a great way of finding it around the guard. He's got a great guillotine on wrestling entries, which we saw get used in the Tim Elliott fight. Something Alex Perez really needs to watch out for, man, because Deiveson Figueiredo is no slouch on the mat himself. I'm all over Figueiredo here. I actually have him parlayed with Valentina and then with Cosce, brother on the first fight here. Definitely probably my most 3 for sure locks of the night. But one thing that I like about this fight, and it's the same with the other one, so with Valentina and Jennifer Maia, we have a 5-round fight lined at 2.5 rounds. And then here we have a 5-round fight lined at 1.5 rounds because of what both guys have done. In a 5-round title fight, sometimes, guys take that filling out process, and especially if Alex can get this wrestling going early, I like this one to go over 1.5 rounds, and at minus 165, I'm willing to play it. You got to think in this RDA and Felder fight, and then Uriah Hall, Anderson Silva, we're getting under 4.5 rounds to bet on, and now you got it at 1.5 and 2.5 rounds. Something I'm definitely, worth playing there at minus 165. I think this goes over 1.5 rounds. But I think Figueiredo ultimately is just going to be too much on the feet for Alex Perez and retain his belt. So, fight of the night for me, man, it goes back and forth between Mike Perry and Tim Means, because I think that's going to be an absolute brawl. But for me, it's Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. I think that is exciting clash of great flyweights who are on the cusp of a title shot. The winner of that fight, without a doubt, gets it. And they both are exciting flyweights who, with the champ, make this division exciting again. And for me, my fighter to watch is without a doubt my girl, Katlyn Chookagian. She's making the quick turnaround after her loss to Jessica Andrade, in which she looked good early, in my opinion. She had talked about, retirement and stuff, which once that's in your head, I don't like. But this quick turnaround makes me optimistic. She wants a win here, and she's being absolutely disrespected with the odds. So my fighter is without a doubt Katlyn Chookagian here. We are looking to make up from last week, down 1.8 units, so looking to release some plays. Keep an eye on the Twitter page. I know Ty's not here, but you guys still will get some plays out this week. Can't wait to have him back so we can deliver a killer podcast for you guys next week. And this 255 here, man, it's one that everybody's sleeping on, but it's these kind of pay-per-views that really do deliver, and it's back in the smaller octagon with a bunch of live underdogs. I think this UFC 255 on Saturday is going to be one hell of a card. In the comment section or description below, make sure to click on the Twitter link, give us a follow there, and we're always tracked at Bet MMA, so look for those to come out later. Hope you guys take care and you're cashing with us.